Why don't you come up a little bit? Come down a little bit, rather. Okay, so thank you for coming. Even if the number is small, I hope that with your concerns, we'll get a sense of how things are going. We have these forums twice a year to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask any question to any one of us here. And we'll try and explain whatever you need to be explained. Bulk of the time should be really spent on you raising any questions, so I'll just keep my remarks to maybe 5-6 minutes. Just to say, we are basically in the process of submitting our annual plan for next year to Council. That's in effect our plan and the budget. And we are trying to do our best in that to ensure that the strategic plan KPIs are met as much as possible. And we are also working quite hard on the preparation of the next strategic plan, because the current one will come to an end at the end of next year. And university has faced many problems in the past when there is a vacuum of any kind. And so it's important that as one ends, you know that there is another one beginning the following year. And we want and we are trying to involve as many students as possible, and we've run competition for your vision of what the university should be like in 2024. And really, as we go through all of these steps that should ultimately culminate in a draft plan for Council, we want to see that students have center stage. You are very important, and we want to make sure that your views are conveyed and incorporated as much as we can. So it'll be an inclusive process, and while your leaders will be involved, there will be sessions where any student can put their views, and we have a portal operating where at any time if you have a bright idea, you are free to put that on the portal. Now, in more recent times, we've had I think everything seems to be running along okay. The Executive Committee and Finance Committee were quite pleased with the manner in which the university is tracking its work on the strategic plan and planning ahead for the new plan. And our finances are broadly in good order. We do have, I think in the last few months, a significant concern about security and burglary in particular. And we regard security of students and security of staff as of paramount importance. And we intend to have some open discussions around what people feel can be done. And we are introducing, and we've introduced some CCTV for labs, etc. So where we have very high incidence of theft, I think we'll want to cover that by CCTV. Yeah, other than that, I don't want to really say much more. and then use the time to see whether you have any concerns, and if you have them, then try and deal with them. So I open it up now to any concerns you may have. But before then, let me ask DVC, LTSS, do you want to really make any comments at this stage? Yes? Yeah.
No, thanks, Visi. Just to reiterate what you said and just to respond to one of the requests that came at the last forum about the software on the computers, and ITS have confirmed they're installing that required software, disabled software, the JAWS software in the labs, and including in the library lab, which is open 24/7 as well. So that was the query that came up last time.
Okay.
Last time the special needs, the disability, had asked the faculties if they could be part of the student learning support, and we have accommodated them, giving them about 4 to 5 hours a week in which they can also, with their aid, use the facilities.
Sorry, I just forgot one other thing as well. These scholarships, they have been advertised and they're open for a much longer time than last time, as was requested as well.
Okay, I think I should add also that next year we will reintroduce the completely revised ELSA test. And when you go out and talk to people about our graduates, they are quite complimentary about our graduates. Our graduates do well. But in a couple of areas, they always mention inadequacies on the part of our graduates. And 2 areas in particular are one in English competency, being able to write correctly, to put things across. And the second one is numeracy, solve problems, understand statistics, etc. And so in order to, and those are serious problems, even those who are sympathetic to us still say that on average, in terms of language competency, Pacific students trained in Australia and New Zealand come out better than USP students. So I think we can't hide away from that. We know that we have those problems. We know that graduates all over the world have those problems, but it seems to be accentuated. So in order to deal with that, and it's not a new concern because we developed ELSA many years ago because of that concern. Okay? So ELSA had been taken off for a few years to get it to be revised and also to put it online. So from next year, we will want to make sure that everybody does this, which is a diagnostic test, so that we can then determine early in your studies whether you need remediation, and if you do, then what components in particular, because ELSA has different components, and if you go through well with 2 components and miss out on one, then all you have to do is to do that extra bit. You don't have to do all of those things together. On the mathematics side, OMDT, this is the online mathematics diagnostics test, together with these associated digital resources, testing will become compulsory for all students next year. And we will let the council know when they meet so that it's not a surprise. And I know BBI is sitting there. I hope I'm not saying anything that we haven't got in the plan. So I think once we get these 2 diagnostics done, then we have got a much better idea of what exactly we will need to do, so that even if you came with some deficiencies at the beginning, when you leave, USP as a graduate, you don't have a problem with those two areas. Okay. I mean, the other soft skills, we're getting a good deal of feedback about, simple work, work-related attitudes and behavior. Get to work on time, to recognize, what it means to be an employee, etc. So we open it up for questions now. You raise your hand so that people with the mic will know where to take it, and maybe one person can have the mic on that side, another person can handle the mic on this side.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for giving us this opportunity. There are so many issues from the Fale postgrad students.
Right.
Okay. First in our list is for stakeholders, for USP, to provide accommodation for us here on campus.
Living accommodation?
Yes.
Okay. So, unfortunately, for 32 years, the university did not build any student accommodation. And we have been trying. We see the 10th hall and 11th hall. And there is no funding from any donor for accommodation. They don't regard that as important. There is no money from the regional governments for building student accommodation. And so we have been taking loans to build more student accommodation. And you will have seen that we have leveled almost 4 to 5 acres of land to construct our largest student accommodation sort of complex, constructed at any one single time, 420 beds or so. So I'm hoping that when that is complete, and hopefully some of that would be completed, or hopefully most of that is completed by the end of next year, we'll be able to offer more opportunities. Right now, we have, I think from memory, close to 1,300 beds. Arvind? Yeah. Across the university system. Okay. So that probably means here just around 1,000. 1,092. So you can imagine 15,000 students roughly come to this campus every day, and we have 1,000 student accommodation. So it's not going to be possible for everybody to have accommodation, and the university has worked out a scheme where priorities are given to students from regional countries, then students from outer islands, and so by the time you have done all those, there's not much left over. So I think realistically, no matter how much we want to do this, it's not going to be in the short term possible to give priority to postgraduate study students. Having said all of that, I went to see University of British Columbia, which is my alma mater, and there they are guaranteeing every postgraduate student campus accommodation. And that is because they want to create a real intellectual community. So I think going forward, the university must build more and more accommodation and include postgraduates and staff so that you have a lot more intellectual community. But I think in the short term, it's going to be not possible to build any more than 420. Sorry.
A particular issue here, VC. We had a meeting with our postgraduate students this week. Some of them are married students, some of them are single mothers. We've had an incident where a regional student mother who has been mugged and twice.
On the campus?
Yes. And so they're very vulnerable currently in the current situation. It's a married couples course. Many of them are doing postgraduates. And we've never really looked at our married couples course accommodation. And on the other hand, Dorothy and Glenn can correct me, we had a policy that was obsolete where, you know, the first preference is given if you are legally married. And so if not, you either, you know, go outside or on the wait list. This has been raised, and I had followed this up because one of the students had come. I do agree with you that we really need to look at that in the long run, but I would appeal, and if this could be put somewhere, the Director of Commerce is sitting here. There are single mothers who are doing postgraduate studies here from the region and also from outer part of Suva who do need some support somehow. We have to think of ways in which maybe we can looking at a place where it's rented out and have negotiation. So I would just like to appeal because for them, because they're very, very vulnerable, many of them. And and while on that, we had a meeting with many of them, the AD, RNI for the faculty. We have addressed some of the issues like the equipment in their lockers that is now being in process. But the accommodation is something that I would like the university to consider and to look at. Some of them were coming, particularly from the region. There's one case right now that I was told from the Marshall Islands, and it'll be a pity if she returns to the Marshall Islands when she's just on the verge of about to complete her PhD, and that'll be the second PhD for the Marshall Islands. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's a fair request to ask Acting Director Commercial to see within the constraints what can be done. We have encouraged Commercial and before then Campus Life to see when we are, you know, in the interim when we are trying to build more accommodation, whether in fact places that can house a reasonable number of students. You obviously can't take many individual residences for that purpose, but if you can find a place where, you know, a number of them can be accommodated, because once you take them up, they become like your own residences and you're, you know, taking on quite a significant liability. So I assume Professor Patel will look into that. Okay. I think one there and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also from the postgrad, Fale. I'm from Solomon Islands. I would like to add on to what our dean had just said, in addition with the accommodation form. There's the form, it says in section F, for married quarters, applicants to complete. There's a section there that I would like the university or the campus life to reconsider, and that has been said by the dean. Married quarters are not normally offered to single parent with children, couples not legally married, applicants not accompanied by spouse. For example, myself, I'm married, I've got 5 children. For the last 4 years, I've been acting as a single lady here in USP. Whatever happens in Fiji stays in Fiji. So that is why I want to see that for us postgraduate students, due to our academic requirements, I see that there is this form needs to be improvement. That's my suggestion. Secondly, since that if I'm correct, the commerce person from the Ministry of Government, we Solomon Islanders seems to see that the rate for rental is a bit expensive for us. Even though there are 2 articles that I've seen, there's one workshop in Nandi and there's one here in Suva saying that there should not be any increase of accommodation rental here in Suva, but we have been experiencing increase of rental. So we would like, which is the avenue that us, regional students, can approach or to assist us in looking for rental accommodation off campus. And we hope that those rental accommodation are safe for us, because I am also a victim of burglar. My laptop that cost me more than $1,000 has been stolen in Reiki, and that has cost me a lot of money, and now I don't have any laptop. And most of my documents for my studies are lost. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will get the criteria looked at, because they probably were set some time ago. So now that that's under commercial, they will organize a review. SMT will look at it, and whatever changes are appropriate, we will make for next year. In terms of how the university can assist our students obtain off-campus accommodation, I know we tried to invite sort of expressions of interest from landlords, tried to see whether we can vet them in any way. So I'm not sure whether that is operational. So Arvind, is that under commercial or under, I know that Campus Life used to do that.
Yeah, we still have Campus Life still develops a database website every year. We advertise in January to landlords for free advertising, and we get listings in which we post up on a regular basis. We still have listings now. So, but that doesn't, of course, that's only one step in a solution that is very hard to find. So we actually do that. It's a service for the students and for staff. And we do that not just here, but also in the other campuses as well. If they provide information, we load up, say in Samoa or Tonga, accommodation as well. But we do that at the start of every year, and it runs all through the year.
Okay. So
but I also know that the Student Association also does their own promotion of accommodation and reaches out to landlords as well. So the Student Association provides a service, and so does Campus Life, off campus.
Yeah, and really it's still with all those efforts, the accommodation situation is very bad.
Correct.
And security around Suva is not good. And so our aim is still to build more and more accommodation depending on demand. Right, so I think those were your 2 main concerns. Did you lose your laptop from your quarters, or did you lose them from the labs?
At the quarters, Reiki. Reiki flat 27.
Yeah, okay. You want to go ahead and ask more questions?
Vice Chancellor, there are 3 victims in the Fale postgrad. 3 women from the region. One is her, and there were 2 more. One was walking on her way back from school in the night, back to her house, and there was this man who dragged her and forced her and removed all her valuables. She had to surrender all those, otherwise this man would have done something really, really bad to her. So I'm appealing to you. And the other one is renting just somewhere down here. Just down, I forgot the name of the street, but then while she was still in the house, there was this person from outside. I don't know whether it's a person or a group of people who are doing this. I'm sure that all the students have been marked by this group of people. And I'm appealing to you, Professor, that you give us, provide accommodation for us on campus next year. Thank you.
Those are very sad stories, and they really sort of expose the risks that students are exposed. So again, I'm not sure how we can manage all of that, because we've got limited rooms, we've got new people coming in. You need to keep them in a safer place until they become more aware of SUVA and can get some rental. I suggest that security, commercial, campus life all work together to see how we can minimize. I mean, SUVA is going to remain, a place where we'll have to watch. It is certainly much safer than Moresby and others, but it's always going to be the case that if we provide accommodation on the campus, everybody is safer. That's where we want to go. And, within commercial, maybe they can look at cases that have happened and see whether we can keep a certain percentage of the rooms where we can allocate to them. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay, I think I have to go there because he's been raising his hand, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Professor. I think so the case of our dear friend there, last year they was said that the security would accommodate them in case if they need support. And I think it was put in the last year's forum. There was some form of security. There was a case here that was raised here in terms of the security, the personal security, where students were, at night getting some security support. I think so it was raised here and it was agreed that
it was raised in terms of students from the Fale,
yes,
yeah, the postgraduate place, coming to the main, gate, etc. Yeah. And we thought that they should be supported or light, the area be lit up.
Yes.
So I'm not sure whether that is now resolved. Because this is not happening here. We're talking about things that happen outside the campus.
Okay.
Been taken care of. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. My first issue is there's the case of a student who had applied for a unit this semester. Unfortunately, she was turned down. But till now, she has been charged for the unit, and there's no response from SAS.
Okay, so.
And I have the name there that I can sort this out hopefully after this.
Okay, so you can't be charged for applying.
It's in factual. The girl got it in her thing, but she's not doing the unit. It's showing in the.
I don't know, but we have to be careful what we're saying. If you can't be charged anything for applying, if you apply and you are admitted and you enroll, that's right. So if you registered, right, then you are assumed to be taking the course. Then there are rules about, the ability to change your mind. So if you change your mind within the first 3 weeks, first week, is it just 1 week? Okay, so you are allowed to add, drop, or exit, then, and you formally withdraw, then nothing happens to you. Basically, you get off our records. But if you don't fill the withdrawal, don't complete the withdrawal process, then the university system assumes that you are going to the classes, consuming those services, and then you become liable for the fees. So I suggest that one follow the grievance process.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll make sure that is.
I think so. The case is they never approved the unit. It wasn't approved from the first.
If the unit is not approved, you are not liable for a fee.
Yes, that was not approved, but still charged.
So the grievance form is going to really be about what is the story? Because I can tell you that for simply applying, nobody gets levied a charge.
Okay.
Yeah. And the university cannot generate the invoice until you are registered in Banner.
Okay, thank you, sir. My second issue here is we did approach the Dean of the Faculty for business because we wanted to do a summer class for 42 students. That's the time when I approached him, it was 42 students. Now I have 74 students. Unfortunately, our discussion didn't turn out to be a positive one because I was advised by the Dean that it has to be my final unit, to just quote him, the final unit, and that is the thing that I have passed all my units this semester. I think so he did belittle me because I haven't passed the unit yet. But the thing that I asked him was, we needed a service, so that it allows us students to also, try and complete our studies as quick as possible.
Okay, so I'll provide a general response, then I think I'll ask Acting Dean for the specifics. In general, the university's first commitment is to run the timetable programs and also offer the, we call blended learning, flexible learning, and all of that are calendared, okay? Then the university has a policy of what we call summer schools before is flexible learning now. And there are strict rules about flexible learning as those courses that you are seeking. And the reason for that is that those at Laudala have lots of opportunities, okay? But out in the region, those people don't have the opportunity. So generally the flexible schools, flexi schools were designed to make more opportunities available to regional campuses. And there is an opportunity cost in this. So if, for instance, the staff is teaching the same course that has been taught here or will be taught, then they are not able to go and teach, for instance, a very large number of students in Solomon Islands, a very large number, who do not have the advantage of face-to-face teaching like what we do here. So when there is a pressure in terms of resources, if you had many people who can teach there and teach there and teach there, there's no problem. But if you have one person who, say, teaches here, is then not available to any of the regional campuses. So that is why it's not a service in the traditional sense. The service you can insist on are the courses that are timetabled and we are obligated to provide. And there are other rules we are saying, if this course, for instance, is available online, we don't want to really run it in another mode, all of those things. But because you raised a very specific case relating to Dean FBE, I would like to ask him to comment on that.
Thank you very much for that issue that you have brought up. I think, yes, I agree that we did have a discussion, and I pointed out that we will run flexi schools in Laudala, but it will be for students who will be completing their programs. There are students who actually have one course left, and for them to come back to the university, it's quite difficult. So we are going out to actually identify those students and the courses, and then we'll set up a program and offer the flexi schools. It won't be on a demand from a particular student. So if you come in and walk into the office and say, I want a flexi school in this, I've got 50 people doing it, but they are all actually full-time Laudala students, and they happen to be picking their courses during the semesters, you can't actually come and say that we want a flexi school here now. We will offer flexi schools, but it is for students who will be completing only, because there's resources involved, and there's a question of taking flexi schools to other people who actually don't have this opportunity. So that's the general policy that the faculties are following. Thank you.
Yeah, so apart from the rules about equity and all of that, we are short of about 454 completions in our KPIs when we will be by next year. And so therefore, if we run flexi schools, one of the first priorities is to just pick up where that one course is stopping people from completion. And not just here, right throughout the region. Okay.
So the thing is, because like I said, some of us have doing four units, and we have one more unit. That's the honest fact. In reality, it's one. But unless we finish the one this semester, we still have one unit. So the reason why we ask it is so that it can fasten our time in terms of graduation.
Sure, no, all understood.
I think so most of the students have that. But the challenge in this is because we have, the core units that we have to, to adapt to, and then you have the electives. With us, the electives, we can choose any. But the problem is the core units. Because if we don't offer it that time, the person has to wait a whole year. Say if I have a unit, and then you have to wait a whole semester to try and get that done.
Okay, and that's because you didn't take it at the right time, because all core units are offered at the right time. Yeah?
Yeah.
I think your point is taken, and I think it's in our interest, where we have the resources, to pick up those who might have failed so that they can progress, they can get back on track. But if there is a choice being made, right, one, we will choose those students who have not had the opportunity to study that is out of Laudala. And the second choice will have to be those who are going to be ending up completing their program, because we're really chasing those completions. Then, if we can find a way of doing this additional thing, then of course we are interested, because it makes more sense.
Okay.
But in that kind of priority, please.
So are we getting it or not? That's the question.
Well, you're certainly not deprived in terms of people in outside of Laudala not having access to the core course. You are not actually in the group that will add a completion next year. So if you have staff that is available and spare, then we might be able to run it. So that's where we leave that to the faculties to plan. Richard, you want to say anything?
Just point out the other major initiatives the university took this year to help students in that type of situation was the lecture capture project as well, which is intended to exactly that. The student has got the odd course. And a number of students complained to the Minister of Education about this sort of issue in the past, and he was of the view university shouldn't offer any flexi schools. I said, well, we didn't want to go that far for the reason it's actually costs the university more even accepting for the students you get what you don't otherwise. But so when the Senate discussed this, they came up with the reasons given, that it was people who couldn't capture it otherwise, and for students nearing completion. That was why the Senate decided on the flexi school policy to do that.
Okay, so I think we'll leave it like that. Okay, so we were coming back here, if you're still interested. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, VC. I was just going to raise a comment around the issue of accommodation, and especially in terms of security. As you all know,
this is our accommodation and security within the university.
It's outside.
Okay, so the problem with outside is that we can't secure people outside the campus. I mean, that is the ultimate point. The university is responsible for security of its students inside the campus, for staff inside the campus, for students in accommodation when they go into lectures, labs, etc. But is not responsible for the student security once they leave the university's precincts.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there really is a need for students to be accommodated on campus.
And I agree with you, and we have been doing, you won't believe how many papers we've written. We had no, in the past, the system was, if you didn't get donors to build that, nothing was built. I mean, that's why for 32 years, no student accommodation was built. So we then said, well, that's not very good. And I'd been to a number of universities where I saw that in order to create the intellectual sort of community, you had to keep them on campus. I went to universities where if you did not have accommodation, you would not be admitted, because it was so important for them to create the feeling of belonging to that institution. So we then introduced this idea, which council accepted, that we can take loans to build. And that's how we built the 144 beds in the first go, and probably 192 or so in the other one altogether. And that's how we hope to build 420 beds. So we are all agreed on that. It's just the speed with which we can get it done. Okay?
Okay, maybe we can go out from that issue. I'll raise another issue.
Sure.
There's been issues or complaints actually from students. I'm coming from the point of, from the perspective of USPSA. There are students who are complaining about the use of facilities on campus, especially the gym and even the sports, the grounds. They were complaining that they shouldn't be paying when they have events, because they have like the GSF, the fees. The CRC has taken part of the GSF, and why should they be paying those fees when their fees have been already taken? So they were saying, why can't the USP, the university allow us to use these facilities just free of charge? These are just issues that came up, and then we decided that we take it up here so that we can also consider. And that's about that issue or that complaint. What else? There are also complaints surrounding the prices of goods at the supermarket. That's the Eddie's supermarket.
You see the one inside
that's
the
the only supermarket that we have on campus. And I know it's been there for years. And the students are really complaining that the prices are very high compared to other prices of goods that are selling in the supermarkets. So USPSA, the association, we are planning of, we are recommending that we should have a 24-hour shop that will offer maybe a price that is affordable to students. And there are also security issues surrounding that issue. When it comes to supermarket. Yes, but they are complaining that the prices are very high, and according to what they can afford on a daily basis.
Okay, so the first one is why should they have to pay for the gym when there is a perception that part of the general student fee is for those facilities? And the second one is the pricing of goods at the little supermarket that we have. So I'm wondering, well, because it involves the gym and the supermarket is a commercial operation, not ours, but they rent the space from us. Maybe I'll ask Acting Director Commercial to respond to those two questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, VC. With regards to the gym, I don't know whether you are referring to the fitness center or the gym. In the gym, I know that was a project between the Student Association and university. And in the gym, we have certain allocated fixed free usage that the students can use. They are allocated times and which they book. They are also given priority and free usage if they have special events and when they want to book in the gym. Rest of the spaces in the gym are blocked for those people who are coming in with the fees or who will pay for those events, including the university operations. If they do come into the gym, they pay for the operations. So that money is used to maintain the gym. In the fitness center, the CRC, there we have a standard charge for the students and the external users. So that charge is there. It has nothing to do with the general students' fees that we collect. So I'm not sure which one are they referring to.
Sure.
It used to be under Campus Life. My understanding, Vice Chancellor and Walter, is that in terms of the fitness centre, a percentage of the student fee goes to the fitness centre. It was increased when Robert Hemmings was here. I'm not sure what it is now, what the actual percentage, but it's quite large. And that allows the students to use the fitness centre outside of certain hours. Is that how you see it, Al? Because that's how it used to be. So in the early mornings, which were the peak for the community, if they wanted to use it, in that particular time, they had to pay.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they never had to pay. Now, I don't think that policy has changed, has it, Elva? No, it has not changed.
Yeah.
So that's the contribution that allows them to go to the gym anytime they want, basically. Same with the swimming pool. I believe it's still free for the students. The issue of the gym, I think, though, is that the fee, there is a portion of the fee that comes to Campus Life Sports that allows us to run sports into tertiary games and sports for students in terms of coaches, etc. But I think there is still a fee, I believe, that if a student association or a subgroup of the student association, such as the law students or the accounting, want to utilise that gym for a social, for example, or some event, they are charged. I believe that's true. That's my understanding.
EDF, do you know the distribution of the student services fee?
No, can't remember on top of my head. It's very minimal though. I think it's about $4 or $5 per student out of the total fee. But what Glenn and Alvin is saying is correct.
Okay. So can I suggest that we have regular meetings with the student leaders, and then I think that's the time to get all the details, see whether the current arrangement is working, and if we want to change it, and then have something. Because I think in this public forum we don't have all the information, and we just don't have the time to sort of think through all of the options. Okay, yeah, please.
Hello, VC. Of the $50 student association fee, $33.50 goes to USPSA, $10 goes to the commercial operations for the gym and other activities, and $6.50 goes to Campus Life.
Okay, so we got the figures. Huh? And that's for the per annum, per semester. Okay.
It's just that the timings that have been allocated for the students to use is not suitable. It's open for students to use from between 9 and 3, and that's when students, on-campus students, have classes, and that's not very convenient to them. Now, when they want to use it in the mornings before 9 and after 3, that's when the community people come in. Now, it's completely understandable that we need some funds to maintain those facilities, but it's depriving the students. It's on the face of it, it seems like that it's a money-making thing. It's just try and get as many of the outsiders community people to pay $5 for one session. If a student goes 5 days a week, that's $25 for the week, and that's just too much. So I think probably one area that we could look on is just the timing.
Okay. So I think, as I said, if the student leaders, we have regular meetings, they're supposed to bring all these things, we can look at that. get the information, see how many students are actually going at what hours and what the pressure is on those, and then figure out what may be an acceptable arrangement.
Just on that, I think so what we need to know, I understand there's about $5 that is given to the thing. Do you have a figure of how many students, pay that and, like pay campus life so that we know? Because not all of us use the facilities, sir. I think so the thing now is about the money. We give a lot of money. Some of our monies are cut for those services. Unfortunately, it's not really benefiting us. So the whole point here is to make it benefit us. Please. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Who is raising the next question? Okay. Yeah, there's one question here. Can I get a sense of all those who want to ask so that we know if we're going there, we'll go somewhere else? And yeah, so there's one there. We do want to distribute the opportunity for people. So maybe we take one from you here, yeah?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Another issue from Fale postgrad students. Some students have raised their concern that they need more face-to-face lectures.
For postgrad?
Yes.
More than what?
More than 3. There are courses that only
3 per week?
No, more than 3 lectures a semester. There are courses, in particularly this semester, that they only offer 3 lectures.
Postgraduate courses?
Yes.
These are not like
face-to-face.
These are not projects. These are normal courses.
No, course, yes.
In what mode?
Face-to-face. Or blended, yes, blended. Blended.
Yes, so I'll ask DVC, LTSs to just respond because, see, a blended mode has different requirements and commitments, and pure face-to-face is different. Online has different.
That's right, and the university has deliberately moved to blended mode to utilise technology more in learning as well. But I think without the specific courses, it's hard to answer. So perhaps if we get the specific courses, we can ask the faculty to respond to that. They may have sound pedagogical reasons for why they're doing that. So, and the university, as you recall, VC has moved away from 3 lectures per week for undergraduate courses to 2 for this particular purpose. So it wasn't just stop giving classes, it was done for a deliberate reason. But if we get the specific details, we can talk to Vale and find out what the rationale was behind what's been offered.
Okay, so if you send the details to DVC about which courses, modes, etc., then I think we'll be in a better position to assess. Also keep in mind that in theory, all of these lectures are being captured or should be captured. Now I know that sometimes these postgraduate courses are taught in very small classrooms that are not scheduled as major sort of places for lectures. They might not be captured, but otherwise, if they are being delivered anywhere, they will be captured.
My point is, having this time with the lecture face-to-face is very important. So
I know, but our point is that if you enroll in a classification, and the classification requires certain things, then that is what the university will provide. Because the university's system means that if you enroll in, say, face-to-face, there are different things the university will make available to the students. If you enroll as online, then whatever the definition of online is and whatever the obligations are, they will be met. If you enroll as blended, then the blended category covers what you're entitled to. So I think that without knowing what courses we are, I suggest that you provide the details to DVC and he will then explain. And if we are not doing something that we should be doing, that you are entitled to, then he will look into that. Okay?
Thank you.
And I think we had somebody there.
Thank you, Sir Vice Chancellor. I just have a few points just to raise this afternoon.
Sure.
First of all is the ITS. I understand that we have the general lab and the teaching lab here at the Japan ICT. Now, my concern is the general lab, whereby at times the timetable doesn't state that there's supposed to be a class inside in the levels concerned. And most of us, I understand that I came from a province whereby not all of us can afford a laptop each. So most of the time when we are inside the general lab and there are these lecturers who's coming in with only 5 students or 10, and we all have to move out from the general lab. And the timetable doesn't state that there's supposed to be a class of UU100 or MA111 and other units. So it really concerns, because the marketing team from USP normally comes to our province and they say that we have the quality education, we have the best facilities. And it's totally the vice versa of the opinion that they normally say. Secondly, this in regards to the security and the CCTV camera. 2 days away from semester 1 exam this year, I lost my hard drive inside the computer lab, and I've been sending emails to and from to the chief security officer and also the manager ITS. And I said today, the blame game is on me that I leave available items inside the lab. My concern on the email was the CCTV camera, because inside the lab and outside there are all posters which says you've been watched, you've been monitored. Now, I just came to know maybe 3 weeks ago that the CCTV camera in most of the lab is not working. And I thank the chief security officer who took me into his office, and we cited that it's totally blank and blank, nothing. So my concern till today is my hard drive, well, they'll be recovered, or what will happen? What is the next step for the ITS? Lastly, I believe we've been attending meetings for students, and this is for the USP SA. We've been told that the finance office, that the USP SA account is not audited. We are a few hours away, whereby we'll be discussing a very important element with the USP SA, that they need to increase their meeting allowance. We've been asking, where is the audit report for the past 2 and 3 years? And they said today, nothing. There's no answer from the USP SA. They've been running election, and we have the new administration inside the office. And email sending to and from, there's been no response from the USP SA. I hope this will be taken considerably. Thank you.
Okay, those are 3 questions. So I'll ask 2 of them. Well, one relates certainly to ITS. The second one is probably a shared responsibility, and then the finance. So maybe we look at the issue of the general and special labs.
Yeah, thank you, VC. The teaching lab and general lab, when there is a problem with our teaching lab, we have to, it's a priority for us to look at our resources and see where we can fit in those students. So I think there was a problem with one of the UU1. So for us to give the student the benefit of access, we have to use one of the general lab, and it's up to the lecturer's responsibility. If it's 5 students, it's not our responsibility. It's up to a student to attend the class. So we have to rationalize our resources based on a priority. So if the general lab, it's open, but if there is a class, there is a problem, we have to reshuffle and make sure that we give our resources to the class, because that's where our priority. And I think the only issue there we see, perhaps maybe our staff should put a notice outside. But that's how we look at it. When there is a problem, we look at our resources, reshuffle and reschedule our resources to make sure that we still continue with the class where it requires teaching. The second issue, there are, I think the comment made today, it's not correct. there are labs where we have CCTV are working. So it's only a few labs where, and I'm sure I'll ask my team to look at those, but most of our CCTV are working. Thank you, BC.
Okay, thank you. So do I get, I mean, is it intended to tell us that this problem occurred because we had a problem with one of the special labs? Is not like, have we gone back to the general lab being open as general lab? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out whether there's a temporary issue or is it an ongoing issue?
It's a temporary issue. We see once we fix that one, then we reschedule back the...
Okay, and that is going to be fixed soon?
Actually, is that problem been fixed? Ready?
The UU100 issue we faced with the labs near the Self building, after we've moved the class across to ITS 13, which I believe what the gentleman is saying, given the size of the lab and so forth, the lecturer has chose to use that particular lab at this point in time, given the size of the lab and the size of the class that he wants to teach. So at this point in time, we've settled them into ITS 13, given the time frame that they want. But at the same time, we've opened up the lab that they used to teach as a general lab that anyone can go in and use.
Okay. And the people who are using the general lab, if they have notebooks or if they have, the tablet computers, then do they still need to go to the lab?
For wireless access, it depends on the area where they're at.
Okay.
I think most of the students that do use computer labs would probably be for specific applications that they might not get on their laptop or tablet.
Okay.
Other than that, for research purposes and the application that they can get on their laptop, they should be able to use it wherever wireless access is available.
Okay. So let me go back to you. So when you got deprived of the general lab, they then released the teaching lab for general use. Were you able to go to the other one?
Thank you, sir. I think none of the general lab was available, although we have quite a few of those here at the Japan ICT. I think it's been utilized by especially U100 classes and MA111.
No, I understand all of that. What I'm really saying is that this class came to this general lab when it had been booked to teach somewhere else. They moved to the general lab because the size was not enough in the other one. But when they took the class to the general lab, according to Penny, they released the other lab for general use. So in theory, if that is true, then it's just an inconvenience of moving from there to there. Is that what we are talking about, or a bigger problem?
No, that was not.
That was the only problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little problem. Because it can happen. I mean, if this lab allocated for teaching, say, has 50 computers and your class has 80 students, but then there's a general lab with 80 students, you basically swap places. I'd like to, I didn't get an answer about how many of the CCTV cameras that are supposed to be operational are actually operational.
I have to mention that we are not completely covered in CCTV cameras for all computer labs.
But where we have installed them, or say that you have installed them,
yes.
How many of them are not working?
But from our point of view, all the ones that I installed are actually working, even though it's not a coverage of the entire computer labs. So for example, for the ICT center building, all the teaching labs are in level B, they're all covered under CCTV. And 1 or 2 labs within the Fale area, that's also covered by CCTV as well. But certainly not the entire computer labs, VC.
And so where your hard disk got stolen, is that a lab that advertises itself as having CCTV?
So it's a level 3, and I was told by the security department that the CCTV camera is not working. But inside the lab there is a general notice that says that you've been watched, and CCTV camera is working, and yeah.
Penny, I mean, what is the story? Do you know which room he's talking about? Okay, so identify the place properly so we can get on with this resolution.
It's building A, sir. Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't have a camera, it can't be working, right? Yeah. So I think that, I mean, if you go to a lab, you don't want to be watching everything all the time. So I think we ought to be really looking at what it will take to cover all the labs with CCTV. I have no idea how much it will cost and all that. But I think that should be our aim. Yeah? And then once we install them, we have to have constant checks that they are working, and then be able to go back to the record to say, well, this is when I lost my stuff, and we can check who might have been doing it. Okay, the third one is the accounts. Now I know that when we had the last forum, the financial management of USPSA was an issue. It does concern us. And so EDF knew before I asked him that he will comment on it. So let's hear from him what the situation is.
Thank you, VC. Of course, the university has been concerned with the, and has been raised at council also a number of times from the student reps on the issue of the audit. The audit has been done. We've seen audit report from 2014, 15, 2016 is probably underway, except that it's a qualified report. That means it's not the full clear report, largely for the reasons that most of the documents are missing. That is, the auditors are not given an opportunity to look at how money was spent in a few places, largely because either filing were not done or the acquittals were not done properly. So the problem in the past was that the treasurers do change every year, and you can't train and even though you train every year, you can't sustain that if it changes every year. So last year, I believe the student association have hired a clerk, finance assistant. That has enabled us to be able to train that person, and then that person would then guide the treasurer through to make sure that the acquittal process. So that is really managed within the student process. We provide the support as much as possible, and we make it strict that the next lot of funds are not released unless acquittals are properly done. I guess then the challenge becomes when the students demand that a particular student activity is done and the acquittal is outstanding, then they're pressuring the VC and I to release the funds. So that's where things become tricky. We want to enforce as much as possible, but there are student activities that needs to be funded as well. So it's really on the student leaders to make sure that we can provide the support as much as possible, but we'll need the leaders to instill that process to make sure everybody who comes in as new officials do sign up accountability forms, which is a new process that we put in place now to make sure that's done. Example, in the last semester, in releasing the funds this semester, we get the clerk to sign an accountability advance. So that has been acquitted, that was good. That means she now understands that, and as long as she communicated properly to the treasurer and all the officials. Thank you.
Can I have a sense of course, when you have expenditure which cannot be accounted for, it raises all sorts of questions. So I was wondering if the account is or accounts are qualified, what sort of amounts are we looking at?
No, they do not normally declare that in the audited report. So.
Okay, we should ask them because I know you can get that information. Sorry, I think the DVC wants to make a comment and then we'll go back.
Just very quickly, then I had raised this issue with the federal body and sort of was concerned as to why they were struggling, and they said that they, sort of things that Boyle mentioned, but also the fact that they got very tied up trying to deal with a bunch of issues, including the election of officers. And I spoke with the group manager, Campus Life, and we have agreed now to help the student body take a lot of load off them by acting as returning officers and helping them to run the elections. So that should help to free things up as well.
There was a proposal to let the Fiji Elections Office run all of the student elections, and I think we should insist on that. My feeling is that with persistent problems about, complaints from people about the fairness or, credibility of elections, I think we should just let a professional body run the elections.
We did check about that. Then the regulations or the laws apply to unions, but not to student bodies, we were told. But where Campus Life is undertaken to help run the elections to give that independence from the student body doing it. Under the actual constitution of the student body, then they can outsource that, and that's what we've agreed to do to help them.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to do that, then
my feeling is that Campus Life shouldn't be involved.
Okay.
And given the fact that these are ongoing things, and a lot of complaints come to me, and I'm basically going to say that one, EDF will advise me about the scale of the problems. We'll highlight that at council. We will make sure that if we, basically the student body is a body on its own, right? They're not part of the university management. And it's set up that way because they need to run their own affairs and they need to be trained. But the problem is that we collect the money for them. And as soon as we collect that money and release the money, we become accountable. Yes? Therefore, we can say to the student body, if you want us to continue to collect the money, if you want us to help you get this money, then these are the conditions. One, the election must be run by the elections office so that we don't want any complaints. And we lay out these conditions for release of funds. Because it's not just today, it's been coming, and it makes the university look bad because it is exposed, and although it's not our business. And I think it puts it gives the student leaders a bad name, because these are the people who are supposed to go and become the ethical, responsible leaders of the countries. And so that's what I would do. If the Constitution doesn't allow it, they need to change the Constitution to make it happen.
Well, the Constitution allows it. We just offer to help. So
Okay.
if that's changed, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'll write to this federal and tell them.
Yeah. Because I had made that kind of, because it seemed like the students themselves had asked the elections office to run it, and it was publicly announced that students had asked and the election office had agreed. I thought it was a great move, because that then is beyond reproach. And we don't want ourselves to get dragged into the elections business of the students. Eh?
I think at one stage, about say maybe 13 years ago, the idea was floated that we don't be responsible for collecting the USPSA fees anymore, and that the USPSA will actually directly collect the fees from the students. And that idea at that time was dropped. But I think it would be good to say that if we do collect the fees on behalf of the students, we could make it a condition that we need clean audit reports every year. And unless we actually impose that kind of condition of getting clean audit reports before releasing the funds, we will not be able to actually manage. Otherwise, we will just simply say that we won't collect the money in future.
No, I remember this discussion in Senate. There was a very strong feeling that the students didn't want the collection to be done. Many staff also felt that you leave it to the unions to do the collection. But I think it was in the university's interest to have a good students association as part of training. And so it agreed in the end to continue to collect the money. But I think we need to impose conditions to safeguard both the students as well as the university. So I think Boiler will need to lay out the conditions financially and also in terms of getting the elections organized. And DVC will work with the student body to convey those and make it happen. And also, EDF will basically lay down formal conditions which will be signed by the student body for the collection and transmission of funds and conditions governing all of those.
Yeah, on the same topic, sir. Firstly, two issues. Firstly, on the elections, all the students were agreed to that we'll get the elections office to come and run the elections, and that wasn't a big deal. It was even put up in the media. However, the USPSA Senate got together at the very last moment and decided that they do not want an independent body coming and doing the elections, for whatever reasons completely unknown to us. Leaving that aside, the main issue that has been raised by my friend, and the one that I'd like to address, with respect to my friend who mentioned about the audit reports, it's completely misleading for him to state that the amounts have not been stated. I have the audit report here with me. It's a qualified audit opinion by the Chartered Accountants, Naivelli and Co. Those are the registered audit accountants for USPSA. I'll just read a paragraph for everyone here. It reads, we note that certain payments did not have sufficient supporting documents to verify whether they were bona fide payments made by the association. Payments with missing documents amounted to $236,705.42. That's nearly $250,000. Now this has happened under the watch of USP, not USPSA, it's USP. As stated by my friend, that the funds are collected by USP, it is released by USP, not USPSA. They get the proposals are sent to the finance office then vets the proposal, and then they release the funds. Now, if they want a second proposal to come in and a second batch of funds to be released, the first ones needs to be acquitted first, and they need to see that all the documents are attached. However, the question arises then that how come they release the second set of funds or the third set of funds or the fourth set of funds without seeing the proper documents? So this is $250,000 that has gone missing under the eyes of USP, not USPSA. So while we may shift the blame as much as we can, unfortunately the administration has failed. And I'm sad to say this, but it's the students' money, and it's not a small amount. It's $236,000, $705.42. It's a qualified audit opinion. It's just to put it out there, the severity of this. And unfortunately, to my surprise, when this was mentioned and it was presented at the last USP SA AGM, not one student raised this issue with the executives. So it's completely unacceptable by any standards, in my opinion. And I'm sorry to say this, but we are the renowned institution in the Pacific, and something that is happening by the student body. And the last forum that I attended, I remember raising it up with yourself, sir. I mentioned that USP must have some hand in monitoring how the finances are used. And everyone was, I remember very clearly, everyone was laughing about this. All the staff were laughing about this because they didn't want USP to interfere with USPSA. I'll repeat this amount just so that everyone can get it into their heads. It's $236,705.42. That's nearly $250,000. Thank you.
That's the cumulative amount, or is it an annual amount?
It's an annual amount.
Okay. So,
can I just add on to that? Sorry. Because there's the problem of the thing is, the university has a law. We have a law that governs, that tells the university that they're not liable for anything. Am I correct? Yeah. Under the ordinance. Unfortunately, the system doesn't do that. But that's the outcome.
Okay. Okay. So I think one is that it's not acceptable that you have, you can have a qualified audit report, but it may be over a small thing. But when you have $250,000 unaccounted for, then that is more than a qualified audit. I mean, that is really an audit with red marks all over the place. So I think, EDF, we really have to, I mean, strictly speaking, it is not university's business, because it is the students. They should govern themselves. They have their own constitution. We have no powers over them. The only remote sort of influence we have is the threat not to collect or not to transmit, right? Other than that, we do not have any role in all of that. Now, are we liable for that? I'm not quite sure. But I think morally speaking, it is generally under the oversight, you would say, of the university. And we, if nothing else, we should have made a strong statement that with that kind of amount, we will not collect or will not dispense. So we will prepare a statement. Not a statement, I mean, we will let the students know that this is the position. I'll probably bring it up in council to say that although we have done it normally, we will have collected and transmitted. The system is now in a pretty bad state, and unless these conditions are met, we will not collect it, and therefore not entertain any sense of liability.
Just to, sorry, Vice Chancellor, just to shed some light on that as a part of USPSA, I can inform the crowd today that audited report was from the previous years, and that it was under when the treasurer was student elected, meaning the treasurer was a student at USPSA. However, now, recently, we have employed an actual finance person that does not come in and out of the position. Therefore, she is an actual person that looks after the finances. She's a permanent staff. So at the moment, I can say that has been said by also for the federal body that they and finance that they are working very closely with her to acquit for all the activities that is done. However, for that amount, that was when there was a student that was doing the accountants, and that student also just left USP, and I think there was like some disciplinary actions that was, he just left the country. So I mean, that was an issue with USPSA. However, with the top-up amounts, it was because some cultural groups were not acquitting their money on time for the amounts that they got. However, other cultural groups that did acquit on time, they were trying to get other events happening. However, they were not getting amounts because other cultural groups were not acquitting. So, I mean, the ones that were doing their job by acquitting their amounts, they had to wait until those that didn't acquit like had to quit for all the activities, meaning they were the ones that were missing out. So that was the issue, thus the top up from the finance department. That's just some light that I can
Okay, I think we know the problem. It's sufficiently large for us to kind of, take some, significant, drastic action. And as I've said, we will have EDF really indicating the extent of the problem, whether the problem is likely to continue this year with the new system. And we will want to make sure that we get in writing commitment from the USPSA Federal about elections. And we will draw up formal agreement with the USPSA on the collection and release of funds. I think without that, it's not, that's a bad reflection on everybody. So I think we'll drop that bit as dealt with under that. Are there any other questions? Yes, please.
Sorry, my issue that I came here to raise today was that during this semester, I am a student that's doing 4 units. One of my units, halfway through the semester, the tutor finished. He informed the students in week 7 that he had resigned due to some strains within, like he had some strains within personal and within the science faculty area. That was for BI 308. And then just recently, just this last week, we found out for my education unit that another tutor has left. So this has been a big issue for me as a student, because now 2 of my units, 2 tutors, there's been a turnover of 2 different tutors, and I mean, it does affect my studies, because I mean, for the BI 308, when our tutor finished, another guy was brought in, and he postponed our mid-semester test up until, he kept postponing it like 2 or 3 times, up until week 10 we did our mid-semester test. And then he was really disappointed with the results he got, because only 20 students passed, but that was, from my point of view, that was the effect, because there was a changeover in tutors. The material given in our MST was something that was not covered in tutorials. I mean, this is a huge effect on coursework as well. 20 students passed the MST out of a class of more than 100 students at a 300 level. And then for my ED class, we have tutorials on Friday, and we just found out last week that our tutor is, well, they didn't specify why she has gone, but she's no longer a tutor, and then we missed that week. This week we had to do our micro-teaching, which does add to our coursework. And then, I mean, next week we have our final week for micro-teaching, which cannot cover all the students, so we have been told that we have to change our teaching lesson plans. We the students, have to change our already made prearranged lesson plans to suit this new teacher, because he can't fit us all in the time span that is left for week 13 and 14. And week 14 is Diwali. We don't even have classes that day. So this is an issue as a student that, I mean, like, what is USP doing to retain their staff, for at least they stay for the whole semester and not half of the semester or 3/4 of the semester?
Okay, I think that is a problem. We owe it to the students to have stability in teaching. 2 specific courses have been identified, one in FST, one in FALE. We would ask the acting dean if he is aware of it, and if not, then specifically look into that and inform us. So I first ask whether you know enough about it to be able to make a comment at this point.
Staff has resigned and he has been replaced. About the mid-semester test, we'll have to investigate.
Okay. So when people resign, normally there are restrictions about like when you can suddenly leave, unless there is an absolute sort of emergency. So this person, they resigned well before, we knew that.
Yes.
Okay, and then the replacement was in before this other person left.
Yes.
And I presume the two talked in terms of handover.
Surely.
Okay.
The only problem is like what has been said, the content of the mid-semester test. That I'll have to check.
Okay. So we will check, because it would seem a very sensible thing that if I'm taking over something, yes, I'll have a good discussion, there'll be some handover notes, and in setting the mid-semester test, which I had not taught, I would be wanting to look at what had been done. Yeah. What about Fale for education? Yeah, Dr. Bakalevu.
We see there has been a change of staff. The previous one had resigned, but she's been replaced by someone from within USP. He's joined this week. I will speak to the head of school and bring up the case of the micro-teaching that he is supposed to do with your science group in ED 350. Yeah.
Okay, because getting through these courses is not easy, and then when you have disruptions, it makes it that much more difficult. Okay, you want to have a follow-on?
Was she not able to stay for the extra 2 or 3 weeks before leaving? I mean, those are just the issues that I wanted to bring up.
I think there is a rule that you can't resign in the middle of the semester, right? So I want to find out who is giving them permission to leave without meeting their obligations. Because if you look at the resignation rules for academics, there are no restrictions for the others. The academics, once the semester begins, then I think there are some rules.
Sorry, VC, thank you very much. Can I clear? You can't stop somebody from resigning when they want to resign.
True.
It's only a matter of legal liability.
Okay. True, but we can, I mean, there are rules about notice period, right? And there are rules about you not leaving in the middle of things. So I just want to make sure that nobody is being generous to say, yes, yes, we don't worry about it, you can go.
This could probably be cases where Vice Chancellor, staff just leaving and not worried about the liability they're left behind. And so they don't worry about the leave or whatever money we are holding. They just simply
you mean they
bolt.
Abscond,
They bolted, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, sometimes these things happen, but you know, we try and minimize it. And those both specific cases, they'll investigate and ensure that we mitigate against that. Okay, we are coming to the last few minutes, so we give, yeah, we've got one there. No, you have had enough opportunity, so we have to look at the equity of opportunity. So there, and then yourself.
Thank you, VC. My name is Christine, and I'm a first-year journalism student. And it's the same issue with that, as she mentioned, with the tutors leaving towards the end or during the semester. If it's possible that USP come up with a policy that allows them to stay within USP until the semester, because with one of our journalism unit, our tutor had to leave, I think last week, but then we had 3-4 assignments that were yet to be taught to us, and it's online. She has yet to teach us what to do on court stories, and there were 3 court stories that were due, but we didn't know how to write it or for her to give us a sample on how it's written. And then she just went away. And then she said that we put up a allocated time where she can come and teach us, which is not part of our class. And she said she was going to come, but then we waited for her and she still didn't come. So I think it's best that you consider the fact, and I also don't like when he mentioned that you cannot stop someone from resigning. Well, that's true, But yet, the priority should be the students because we pay for it and we deserve quality access to these resources, Binaka.
Okay, so I think it means that we better ask HR to look at what our rules are about, once the semester starts. Generally, unless there is an emergency, people continue. And if they have gone, what is the university doing other than saying they've gone? Yeah. And this person in journalism, this is from Fiji or the Pacific, or they've gone elsewhere?
We have no idea where she's gone to and where she's gone. Oh, New Zealand.
Okay. So Fale, can we just have a look at what is happening? There seems to be clearly it's coming out that people are leaving, like in this case, possibly right at the end. And was there anything we could have done to, prevent that? All of those things. Okay, yourself here.
First of all, good afternoon, Mr. VC.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I would like to acknowledge the work which is being done by our IT people. We've noticed a change in the computers from the last time when we raised it, about 2 years back. I've been here. This is my 4th year. So I noticed this change is going on. And also the security too. I would like to acknowledge their work too. They've done a good job. Mr. Uliviti, Mr. Tabore, Madhu, Ganesh. Yeah. But I think from my 4th year here, this is the worst year of stealing.
Yeah.
Last week, I have raised this in the USP as a AGM. My bag was stolen. This is my second bag, Mr. VC. Yeah, it's a bit dirty. It was stolen.
So is this being done by students or others?
I think, well, what has been happened now, Mr. VC, is I'm not condemning the work of the security. They're doing a great job. But like it has gone like high. Now, like last week on Friday there were about 5 people came in suspected of stealing. 2 were selling tobacco. I'm not sure, marijuana or what. So I asked those 2. They said, we come here, because one was peeping from the doorway. This is about like 4 o'clock in the morning. And everybody see like they were dozing off to sleep. And I was stepping, I noticed, see, when somebody looks at you and stares at you, you can feel it. I could feel it, even though it's nighttime. So I looked like this, I saw this guy standing there. And I tapped again. After about like 30 seconds, I look again like this guy's still there. So I went outside, and he took off to the tables. This is in Lab 10, beside the dining hall. So I went there, and I saw another guy. And I told them, what you 2 doing here? Then he went like this, you wanna in a small tone, in a weak tone, you wanna buy one tobacco? I said, no, this is not the place to sell tobacco. So I went, I emailed across the security. And they came. See, and the stealing, again, another 2 before that. And they were apprehended by Mr. Ganesh. And Mr. Ganesh came and debriefed us. They were outsiders. They gave fake IDs, and they caught them there. And when they came, what is the purpose there of their coming? See, that's the big question. And again at 5 o'clock, 10 past 5, another guy came with a pullover. Everybody had gone to have their tea in the dining hall. Only one guy sleeping there, one student. Bag open, the video camera there, what you call the camera, mobile phone with a camera. So this guy was sleeping, and that one came with a pullover. So I was tapping, and he sat in a place like facing us like this. Lucky I was still there. I thought to myself of leaving that guy so that his things got stolen. But then, one thing I noticed, this guy is wearing a Seiko 5 watch. And when I stood up, I went around like this. I noticed the pullover, Canterbury written at the back, and one bag. Mr. VC, this bag is flat as a table. A black bag. And you know what that means, eh? So I knew. And this guy pulled over the hood like this. So I want to see the face. I couldn't see the face. So what I did, I went back to my bag, took out, because I have my change in my bag, one dirty shirt, dust in there. So I took it out and I dusted it on him so that he looked around, because the hood like this. So when he looked around, I was surprised, Mr. VC. The face of this guy is a matured person, elderly, just like me. And I thought to myself, what the hell is this guy doing here? See, that's the fifth person in one lab coming, and that's about 5:10. The lady, I think he came late. Mr. BC, this is not funny, because my bag was stolen.
Funny, yeah.
And also, we have our annual general meeting here with the student body, USPSA. There was a fire alarm. I do not know whether it's deliberate or what. It went out, and somebody came inside and told us, everybody go outside and stand in the evacuation area down there. So we went outside, and it was night, after 7. When we came back, you know what happened? 2 computers gone. See, that's how, it doesn't happen like that 3 years back. Now it's gone worse. What I'm suggesting, Mr. VC, this is because now we are worrying not only of our assignment, our exercise, and our lecturers. Some of us are doing studies online. Eh? So we have to worry about the time, the postal close. Now we are worrying also the stealing. So when some people go and have their tea in the night, because it's cold around here, so he has to remind one of us, please make sure nothing is lost. But then that's not our work. We have to worry about our son. So what I'm suggesting, Mr. VC, it's not a condemnation of the security work. They have done a good job. But to complement the work, one is, these people are coming with the pullover and caps. See, the one which was caught 3 weeks ago here by Madhu at the ATS, what you call OZ computer lab. 3 guys, one took off. Now, they also brought an empty bag. They all wear caps, like here. And they only come around, this is what we are talking about, they come around 2 or after 2, when everybody is dozing off to sleep, and they go and have their coffee. So what I'm suggesting, Mr. VC, is that when they enter the lab, everybody must take out their cap. Like at the FNPF, you have a sign there. Here. Take off your caps before you enter. Yes, they got a camera there too, so that the face can be seen. Eh? See, that the one with the pullover, I couldn't see the person, but then I had to use that technique. And he got mad. He really got mad. Then he closed the computer. Then he shoved the door inside. What you call that chair? Then stormed out. I said, why you do that? Then he didn't say anything. He just took off.
Okay. So I think you emphasize enough. Because we do now, I mean, I also get this feeling that it has reached a point where we must treat that very seriously. And this also came up at in the morning session with the staff. There has been a dramatic sort of increase in the incidence of, burglaries. And we had a discussion within SMT. We are going to have some more open discussion. And we take all the suggestions, including really wanting, so people, there's no reason for somebody to hide their face inside a computer lab. And the chief security and other members of the security are here. So I think those points are taken. We do want to make sure that we are addressing this severity of the problem, because we don't want our students to be worrying about people stealing their things. We want them to be worrying about their assignments and about academic excellence and the like. So thank you for bringing it up. I think it just reinforced the general sense that we have on that.
Thank you, sir. Just to add on, before I finish, is it possible to involve the police so that these guys can be charged? They can be charged for trespass. They are outsiders, even if they don't steal.
So we will look at all of those. We certainly, if we determine that they should not be on the campus, then we can involve them. But if other people are coming, this is still a public place, then it's very difficult to suddenly turn around, you shouldn't have been here. But we did say in the morning that the security will have the authority to ask for IDs, because we need to make sure that all the people here are bona fide students, bona fide staff, or people who have some legitimate business. And if we find that they can't produce their ID, then I think they have a right to say, well, until you can produce the ID, we want you to leave the premises. So yes, we can involve the police, but under those circumstances. Okay, I think we've come to really, this is just straight at 4. We have had very good attendance today. I know last time we were struggling to have students. We have had good attendance and we've got good discussion, and a number of ideas have come, and also it's very clear where the problems are. And so we take them on board. Some of them will be responded to immediately, and some of them will become part of a strategy, particularly about security. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming along. And there is refreshment, I'm sure, right, Ronin? So please help yourselves to refreshment. Thank you.